Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining this morning. I'd like to start by reading a little excerpt, a little paraphrase from this book here. Anybody familiar with this book? The Book of Joy. It chronicles when Archbishop Desmond and the Dalai Lama got together, and their conversations with regards to joy were captured. And it's a wonderful book if you get the opportunity to read it. And from the book, recent research by psychologist Sonia Lyubomirsky suggests that three factors that seem to have the greatest influence on increasing our happiness are our ability to reframe situations more positively, our ability to experience gratitude, and our ability to, and our choice to be kind and generous. These were exactly the attitudes and actions that the Dalai Lama and Archbishop had already mentioned, and to which they would return to as central pillars of joy. Of those three pillars of joy, I would like to speak of gratitude today. We as human beings, all too often, attach and cling to that which we have tagged as being in some way negative. We have so much to be grateful for, and yet we allow the delusions that our small mind paints to become our reality. Rather than this, through our practice, we need to learn to be skillful with regards to our untethered thoughts, letting them go and focusing back to this moment and what we have to be thankful for. What do we have to be thankful for? Oftentimes, when we are asked this, it can become an almost robotic answer. My friends, my family, my health, etc. Obviously, these are all things that we do have to be thankful for. But even more so, what do we have to be thankful for here and now, in this moment, in this minute, this hour, this day? How about the air we breathe? How grateful would you be for it if you were struggling for it in this moment? Or perhaps water. How grateful would you be for even a drop if you were without? What about this very moment? What if it were not here? Be grateful for this moment. Be grateful for every breath and for every drop. Dogen said, continuous practice, day after day, is the most appropriate way of expressing gratitude. This means that you practice continuously, without wasting a single day of your life, without using it for your own sake. Why is it so? Your life is a fortunate outcome of the continuous practice of the past. You should express your gratitude immediately. This sounds perhaps daunting to practice continuously and immediately, but is it really? In my opinion, those of you who are familiar with the Genjo koan, the Genjo koan is exactly that. It is an exploration of immediate and deep gratitude for each and every moment of each and every day through our practice. While researching for this talk, I came upon a statement by an individual by the name of Domyo, who was speaking of gratitude on a Zen studies podcast. I found their statement very pertinent. Gratitude can be used as a practice to shift our attention from self-centered problems and complaints to an awareness of the miracle of simply being alive. It can help us to be less reactive, depressed, anxious, and irritable, and more mindful, and frankly, happy. Personally, I have found this statement to be very valid. Along my Dharma journey, gratitude has become one of the cornerstones of my practice. Every day after my meditation, I sit for a bit, I chant, I pray, and deeply express my gratitude. I start by breathing deeply and expressing my thanks for being here, for being alive, for breathing in this moment, for the air I breathe, the water I drink, the food I eat, and so on. I do this for a while. It's something I would maybe like for you to try for a moment now. So if you wouldn't mind, for a moment or two, 2 minutes maybe, let's take 3 deep breaths to center ourselves again. And then what I'd like you to do is begin to truly experience each part of life that you are thankful for. Think of the air that you breathe. Imagine being in a small confined space without any. Or what if you were drowning? How grateful would you be for a single breath? Experience each thing you are grateful for deeply in this way. Let's try that for a couple minutes, and I'll ring a bell when time is up. I'd like to finish with a quick Buddhist parable, if I could. One day while walking through the wilderness, a woman stumbled upon a vicious tiger. She came to the edge of a high cliff. Desperate to save herself, she climbed down a vine and dangled over a fatal precipice. As she hung there, the tiger swiped down with its claws, barely missing her hands. 2 mice then appeared from a hole in the cliff and began gnawing on the vine. Suddenly, the woman noticed a plump wild strawberry on the vine. She plucked it and popped it into her mouth. It was incredibly delicious. There's quite a bit of differing opinion in the Buddhist community about the underlying lesson here in this parable. Some would say that it's a lesson in reframing a situation and being grateful for what you have in the moment. Another school would say that it's a lesson in the perils of being distracted by pleasures. I don't know that it really matters either way. I just know that I'm grateful to have been able to share it with you today, along with this talk. So thank you. And that's it.
Does anybody have any questions for John?
Excellent. I must have been very thorough.
Come on, somebody. Virginia?
Yes. Would you repeat the 3 pillars of joy?
Yeah, for sure. The three pillars of joy are our ability to reframe a situation more positively, our ability to experience gratitude, and the choice to be kind and generous. What the book goes on to say is that there's kind of like everybody, just based on your DNA and other factors, have kind of like a set point for a certain level of happiness. But beyond that, and beyond that, there's quite a bit. These three factors really are what play a part in you being able to somewhat take hold of and experience joy more frequently in your life. Anyone else?
Mike?
Is joy a result of being in the moment, of not worrying beyond what's happening now, your future or your past? The lady's hanging from a vine with a tiger swiping at her and rats chewing on her vine stuff, and she sees a strawberry. She's not worried about her future. She's just in the moment, and in that moment, that strawberry was right there, and it was really delicious. You can't avoid the perils of life, but you can appreciate the moments even when they're like that. Do you feel that that's kind of what is being said in this?
I think so, but I'll defer to Jane and Peter to further elaborate on that.
Actually, John, this is your this is your pot.
The buck does,
Today we are just sitting with everybody else, listening, just like everybody else.
Yes, Mike, I
Do
think
your best.
I think that is the message that, you know, in each moment of each day, if we point to and look for what we are grateful for in this moment, rather than the perils of this moment or the past or the future, that in that way we can begin to really find joy in our lives, especially when we mix that with the other two pillars, which, you know, kindness, you know, generosity towards others, and the ability to reframe a situation, which is pretty much what's being done there on the vine, reframing that situation. So yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Virginia, is your hand still up, or you want to ask another question?
Actually, I wanted to talk about that parable for a minute. It came up in a book discussion with Peter and Jane, and when Peter and Jane gave their interpretation of it, I mean, their interpretation was pure survival. I mean, they were scrambling. I mean, do you remember that, Jane? I can hear you laughing.
I was laughing because I don't remember it exactly, but what I did do was sit here and imagine myself in that position, and I can't for the life of me think that I would even notice the strawberry.
Right.
I think I'd be trying to figure out how to get the mice away.
Yeah, I mean, you and Peter were both thinking about pure survival. You were hunting for a tree in the cliff to get a hold of, you know, because the mouse was eating the vine. And, I mean, it was, I loved it. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I do not think I would even see the strawberry.
Yeah, I don't. I kind of think that I would. I'd skip that final delusion of desire for a strawberry. No, thank you.
Or if somebody was looking at the strawberry, you'd have to assume that they've already given up. I think I would fight to the end.
I think though that it is both ends, though, that parable. I think that parable is. I think it is also a lesson in you know, not being distracted by the pleasures. You know, I think it really can be looked at in both ways. And obviously, I don't think it's in any way practical. And like a lot of parables, it goes to extremes to make a point. Yeah, I don't think anybody.
Yeah, I imagine while you were talking, I was seeing myself in that position. I was thinking, no, no strawberry for me. I'd be scrambling. Sandy?
Your talk brought up something I had read a long time ago and written down, but I can't remember now who actually said this or wrote it. Um, it was about happiness and about that so many people go outside themselves and look for happiness, and they'll buy something for happiness. They'll want a certain job for happiness, and yet all these things, once they receive them, will generally fall flat, and it'll bring them more. That seeking for happiness outside the self will bring them more pain than happiness at all. And the quote was basically about there's no reason to search for happiness. Happiness is within us. And what you were talking about was about we creating the happiness from within ourselves, to be kind to others and do those three things. That in itself, it's there. We just have to kind of like light the match and do what's naturally inside of ourselves, give of ourselves, and we will be happy. We won't have all that time to worry about, oh, well, if I can buy that house or I can buy that car or I can get that job, then I'll be happy. So it truly is within us, the ability to be happy.
I agree. I would say, right. I would say actually that I think that the three pillars that I've been speaking of this morning aren't necessarily things that maybe cultivate joy and happiness, but rather help us to cut the delusion and uncover the joy that already exists within
Right.
us.
It is within us.
Yes.
Yeah, it might have been the Dalai Lama who I read at that time
Yeah.
about happiness being within.
Rachel?
Oh,
Are you done, Sandy?
yes, it's just lowering my hand.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
Berries being the way they are, especially wild, it could be red and bitter and partially green. To me, the integrity of the parable still stands. And I just wondered what you thought.
Are you saying if the berry itself is soured rather than delicious?
Yes, if you plucked it and it was not that luscious, delicious, in fact, it was piquant and bitter. To me, the parable is still absolutely intact. But I just wondered what you thought. Because saying it's luscious sets up a certain dynamic, but frequently, it's not luscious.
Yeah, I would agree that, it brings in discrimination, what is good and what isn't good, and that's something that we obviously are trying to work ourselves away from and just accept things for what they are. And I do think that the parable does stand on its own because it's really about experiencing the berry in that moment, not whether the berry is delicious or not delicious or whatever it may be. Yes, I would agree, Rachel.
You're alive to bite it.
And Mike?
Me.
Or
Oh,
Steve.
Chris.
Yeah. So I was actually about to weigh in on the parable too, but I think Rachel at the right before I got to speak pretty much nailed it. Because I was interpreting it as a theme. Oh, there we go. I was interpreting it as basically exactly aligned with John's theme, where she could be about to die because the mice are chewing the vine. So she's about to never have the opportunity to have any strawberries ever again, just like the person who's drowning will never have an opportunity to have a breath of air ever again. Or John, you based in the same vein as the guided meditation of sorts you took us through. When I heard your dog bark, and I was like, you had just said something like "sorry in advance for any dog barking." It made me think like how much would someone who just lost their dog, be grateful to have their Zoom meeting interrupted by a dog. Um, so those were just some thoughts I had during the discussion and the talk. Just in general, gratitude, I think, is a natural result from just unfiltered, unbridled awareness and appreciation and understanding of reality as it is in its completeness, without leaving anything out or picking one thing to focus on rather than the other. And I think that also gets back to the parable. If we were aware of how thin the thread is by which our life hangs in a balance, I think that would be a reliable inspiration for gratitude. But I also like just cultivating gratitude without trying to mentally put ourselves in a place of about to lose something, even though that might be true. I think I don't know. I don't think I could live like that, or I'm constantly just like, I could die at any moment. I better be grateful for the traffic in LA or something like that.
I'm so spoiled here. Oh, I'm sorry. You're next, Steve.
Thank you, John, for your talk. Appreciate it. Yeah, gratitude and generosity. When I'm in that moment and in the moment, it is a wonderful thing, being grateful and having that, I don't know, warm feeling come over you that, wow, it's good to be alive. But I have to say, during your parable, I was thinking, even if I seen the strawberry, I wouldn't eat it. I would have threw it at that mouse and tried to get him away from the rope. But that's me.
Well, even if
Thank
the
you.
mouse ate the strawberry and stopped chewing the vine, there's still that tiger.
But I can hang for a lot longer than fall.
So there's a story about Suzuki or from Suzuki Roshi that kind of relates to this. Some of you have maybe read it before or heard about it, but he was at Tassajara. There's a kind of a swimming hole that you walk down creek for half a mile or something, and then there's a kind of some boulders have made a place where you can. That's quite deep. And we used to go down there and jump in off the boulders, and just that was a
Skinny
place to
dips.
be. Okay, and yeah, and it was skinny dipping too. No, at that point it wasn't. It had been before the Zendo opened formally, but it wasn't at that point. Anyway, Suzuki Roshi saw everybody. He told the story. He saw everybody, and he wanted to join in, so he jumped in the water, forgetting that he couldn't swim. Okay. And he fell and he sank down, and above him he said there were all these a lot of women students were in swimming there also, and he could look up and he could see all their beautiful legs above him, but he couldn't touch them. But he kind of struggled for a while, and then it came to him what's happening. And he just went down to the bottom and sat there. And but that's the important point. And then he just sat there. And someone discovered him, I don't know who, and he was pulled out. And they later on put a rope down into the pipes in case that ever happened again. Someone went to the bottom, now they could climb up the rope. But anyway, he just sat there.
Well, that's a little like the berry, isn't it? You know, I mean, how many of us would have just sat there? How many of us would have just enjoyed the berry? But apparently there's a point at which you do just enjoy the berry or sit at the bottom.
One is, well, if you interpret the story to mean acceptance of everything, which you could with a berry, but that would be that. But I think that Suzuki Roshi, of course, didn't tell a story to teach us about him sitting on the bottom. He just told the story about, more about the foolishness of having jumped in. But anyway, so he at that moment he decided, okay, well, here we are, here I am, and just sat down, and it of course worked because he lived on. But
Thank you, Peter. I always love a good Suzuki Roshi story. Are there any other questions, comments? If not, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time today, and I hope you got something from it.